Hello and welcome to session 2 of Untangle Your Brand, which is all about the insight. So in part 1, we just had an introduction to branding, talked about music, talked about creativity, but most importantly, focused in on trying to create a vision statement, something that gives us a direction of travel for our business. So now we've got that in place, we can start to move on and think about the insight, think about how we're going to stand out from the competition so that we are more attractive than other businesses with our brands. So as before, there's a whole bunch of worksheets. Again, there's only a couple of things that are really important for you to do, and I'll make those clear as we go throughout. But if you haven't downloaded them, do download them at the end. So the thing that I talk about a lot is positioning. It's the second part of the donut. And, what is positioning? What does it mean to you? Well, positioning is simply how your audience see your business relative to your competition. That's my definition of positioning: audience, business, competition. And it's the dynamic between all three of those that actually puts you into an actual position, and I'm going to show you that in a second, that relates to all the other businesses that are around you. So we use what we call a positioning matrix. So there's a bit of kind of like brand science type stuff. But if you just think about your product and your service, are you new to launch? Are you established? Are you high price? Are you low price? And just some basic kind of guidance around that will help you position your business in relationship to other things. So if you think about cheese companies, kind of things that are more high price and new, they tend to be more unique, more novel, which is all the sort of new vegan cheese type stuff. Whereas if you're high price and established, you're a more premium type product. So I really want you to think about where you are positioned in the market, and then you'll be able to also think about who else is around you. And the important thing to think about, do you want to stand out or do you want to blend in? And there's advantages of each of that. Standing out, gives you a point of difference, but it makes it quite hard to create a position in the marketplace if you look so different to everyone else. And again, this is not about copying, but if you think about, premium products and services, there are visual tricks and techniques that people use to make them feel more premium, even if they're not. So understanding where you want to be on that chart is really important. So I would think about, where you are positioned, even in this matrix. You can create your own matrix, by the way. There can be different things on the horizontal and X and the vertical. But just think about where you are positioned today, and then start thinking about where you might want to be positioned in the future. You might be new and low price. You want to move up to be a high priced established brand. What is your journey to get from this entry level into the premium positioning? Because you can't just land in the premium position if you don't have the authority, if you don't have the track record. So it will be a journey for you. So think about where you are positioned today. We're going to go through each individually, talking about the audience, the business, and the competition. And we're going to start with the audience. And kind of the classic sort of first question you ask is, what is it that they need? What is the issue that you need to solve? And you should have done this 100 times and thought about this at depth. If you haven't, do it now. Really think about the issue you're trying to solve, and similarly the offer that you're going to provide, that you're going to sell to them, that's going to solve that need. But what I want you to think about, which is sort of taking a bit deeper from a branding point of view, is actually what is the result that they feel once they've had that offer from you? How do you want them to feel is the really, really important question to ask. So there's a worksheet, and this is a must-do task, by the way. So think about their needs, think about their offer, think about their feelings afterwards. Now, some of you may have more than one audience, which can happen, and that's absolutely fine. If you've got very different audiences, what is the link between them? We're trying to get just one emotional feeling. And I'm going to give you an example. So throughout this course, as I say, I'm kind of building a brand for a cheese company. So I'm thinking about my audience. So this is my ideal client for my cheese company. She's called Frantic Fiona. She looks frantic. She looks a bit annoyed, to be honest. Because what is it that she needs to do? She needs to feed the kids. Yeah, that's kind of why she's kind of like a bit frantic. So what are we going to offer her to actually solve that need? We're going to offer her bulk, so as much cheese as she can take almost. And that's just the thing that I think will suit this audience. But how do I want her to feel once she's actually received that offer? I want her to feel relieved. And by focusing on the feeling that she has, that will help create better messaging and better communication ideas by focusing on the feeling rather than just the needs and the offer. So try the worksheet and go through that and think about it in connection to your business and your brand. Now, again, throughout this course, this could be for many different people. You're all different businesses out there, but it's the same principle. If I had a different audience, maybe expert Edward, he needs adventures. So I'm going to offer him a members club, and because he feels important, he looks like he feels important. Or maybe Curious Colin, another protagonist, I call them. He needs to like, explore more. He wants variety pack. He wants to feel impressed. But thinking about how your audience feels, whether it's relieved, they want to feel important, feel impressed, etc., will lead you down to different channels for what your brand and how it's connecting with your audience. One of the things that's really important to do is also to go and ask your audience, why they chose you. Current clients, why do they love working with you? Maybe lapsed clients, why don't they like working with you? Ask these questions of people, get that insight. But really crucial, I find this really important, is what I call cheerleaders, people that have been loyal to you throughout your business, who would just buy and they would support you no matter what. Ask them their direct questions, why do you give me such support? And it's really kind of, positive affirmation, and people probably know it better than you do. So there's a worksheet that's all about asking the audience, going to those people, asking them these questions: why me, what works, what doesn't work. Again, it's one of those things that you can't do and then get to the end of it and then we can move on. It's something that you should be doing all the time. Maybe putting a program of work over a 2-month period to ask your audience questions and use that insight to keep on developing your brand. I think one of the things that I found really interesting is brands is, when you think about something like Marmite, people have reasons to love it and hate it. And in Marmite, then use that to their advantage. And I think when you're thinking about, these questions that you might be asking, that can be something to sort of consider. What do people love? What do people dislike? And I think what's important in that, and what's interesting when it comes out, is that you can actually use some of those pluses and minuses to think about it. So what I want you to do is think about what customers love about your brand and what they hate about your brand, but use those negatives and translate those back into a positive. And I'll give you an example for the cheese brands. People love the variety, they love the versatility, they love all these things, they love the comfort and the nutritional side of it. But then there's like the bad stuff, it's high fat content. People don't like the smell and the taste and the fact that they might even be allergic to it. So we can actually use some of that, saying that our cheese stinks, as in make a benefit of the fact that we love stinky cheese, because you will attract those people that really love those things about it, and put off those people who are never going to be convinced to buy cheese. And you don't want to waste time marketing to people who are not interested in your product. So just think about the love and the hate between the different sort of sides of that coin and see what you could come up with. There's some sort of key messaging for later, maybe. The next thing to do is to think about your business. So we're just going through this alphabetically, A, B, C. And I think when you start thinking about your business, it's really good to take a look in the mirror and sort of praise yourself. A lot of people are quite negative, I found. So what is looking good? Really think about what looks good. What are you proud of? What's actually working well? But I think you've also got to identify where there's room for improvement. Look at your website, look at your visual identity, look at the things that you have created. Where could you actually, just by making a few changes, improve them without having to start again? But also, you've got to be honest, what doesn't look so great? And it's really, really important that you're honest with yourself about this. And, again, when you've asked the audience, they may tell you some of this. Ask them some of these questions about, what don't you like about my brand? Is as useful as just getting lots of people saying, I love it, I love it, I love it. Because actually finding out what some people dislike will really help you as well. So there is a worksheet for that, to actually say, what's looking good, doesn't look so good, room for improvement. I would suggest this is quite a quick thing for you to do and quite useful to do at this stage, so that then you can actually focus on some of those later on. Then finally, you need to think about your competition. Now, don't be afraid of competition. And to be honest, if anyone says they don't have competition, they probably haven't understood the market enough. Everyone has competition. There is competition for everything. So I would look at, like, who do you admire? Look at direct competitors. I mean, don't get hung up, and we're not copying them, but think about what they do well, what are they better at than you, what is unique about them, and really learn from the competition, because they can really help and inform what you should be doing. I would look at some really big businesses, the ones that you've got $1 billion businesses that you think, I can never be as big and important as they are. Well, it doesn't matter. You can still learn from them. You can actually still find some of the tips and techniques that they're using in their brands and bring them into your brand. And then finally, the sort of admired brands, the kind of the consumer brands that you love. What is it that you love about those brands? What can you bring from them into your business and actually help evolve your brand, because the chances are if you love something about a particular brand like Adidas, it's cool and comfortable, bringing that into your own brand will actually be beneficial to your audience as well. So again, look at that as it's an optional sort of thing, but look at others. Always be thinking. Again, this is something you probably should be doing, every 6 months, every year. But having a constant sort of list of who are the key competitors and how do they position themselves. The other bit you can do, and there's a link to this, is the competitor audit, and I'm going to show you what I mean just in a bit more detail. The things that you should be looking at. And you just need to think about, what do they do well, what do they do less well, what is unique about them. But you don't need to go overboard with the information. This is just an example. So this is a direct competitor. This is for a cheese company, very local. I'm looking at, this is the way they present themselves. They've got a little cartoon character. They say over 150 selected artisan cheeses. I only look at the first 60 words because no one really reads beyond that. But they're calling themselves Fine Artisan Cheese since 1985. So they're trying to establish themselves as having been around for quite a long time, even though 85 isn't really that long. It's like 30 years or so. But they're doing things with their graphics, their imagery, and their words to sort of help them with their positioning. If I look at something that maybe is a bit bigger, the Fine Cheese Co., we mature retail, wholesale, and export traditionally made cheeses from producers who prioritize quality over profit. So they've got a kind of message in there that's very important to them, and a much more sophisticated approach to their imagery. It feels a bit more high quality, and all these things. So you're looking around at competitors. What are they doing well, less well? I don't particularly like the Fine Cheese Company logo. It's a bit over the top. It's a bit hard to read. Interestingly, they've really made a point that they're positioned in Bath, England. So maybe that's because they're selling internationally. Think about those sort of things. But also look at the really big brands that are out there. So Cathedral City Cheese, one of the biggest selling cheese brands in the UK. With over 50 years of cheese making expertise, we guarantee that great tasting cheddar every time, which is why we're proud to be the nation's favourite. So they've said about how old they are, that they are the UK's favourite cheese. Is that actually true? I don't know. What did they do? Maybe they got some insight. Asked 100 people what their favourite cheese was. Cathedral. Think about that as you're doing the insight. Think about what you can learn from these big brands. Now that we've understood more about the audience, the business, and the competition, we can create what we call a positioning statement, something that very briefly kind of summarizes what your business is all about and how you're different to your competition. And these are the bits of information that we need. We need to understand your business category, your difference, your key audience, and the emotional response. So as long as you've done something throughout this course so far to give you some of that detail, then you can move forward to this final task to create a positioning statement. And it's kind of like a formula, if you like, to help orientate how the information should be shared to people. And you can adopt this slightly if you like. There's never any fixed rule. But if you go through and just think about these things, so describe your category and activity. The cheese business I'm doing, it's just a cheese company, an online cheese company. It doesn't need to be too much detail there. But what describes you that makes you different from the competition? What is that competitive difference? Again, we just need a few words. What is the key audience? Who is this business for? And then finally, what is the emotional response? So again, fit it together a bit like a jigsaw, and then maybe craft it into a better sentence, into a single sentence would be a good idea how to do that. So if I think about my cheese company, it's quite simple. It's the online cheese company that provides wholesale products for busy families so they can just get on with their day. And so that captures, the factual stuff, online cheese. The competitive difference is wholesale products. That it doesn't need to be the most unique thing, by the way. It's just something that makes it stand out from other people that might just be kind of doing kind of small retail stuff. Who's the audience? It's the busy families, frantic Fiona. But what is it that we want them to feel? We want them to feel relieved so that they can just get on with their day. So hopefully you enjoy doing that task. It's really important because it actually acts as that, it's that first 15 or 20 words that people will read about your business and get a really good understanding of how you're different to everyone else, who you're for, and how they should feel when they've actually engaged with you. So next time we'll be moving on to the story and we'll be building on around the donut, and I look forward to seeing you then.